All right, it being 3 o'clock, we're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. I'm going to ask the secretary to call the roll.
Okay. Hello? Let me just verify. IT, are we set up and ready for streaming? Good? Okay. Right. Meeting called to order at 3 p.m. Present, we would do Christopher Villa,
Here.
Bob Burns,
Here.
Isabel Carrillo, Martin Bartlett,
Here.
Dr. Michelle No is absent, Joshua Famat, Mr. Anchondo is also not present, and then Commissioner Renteria.
Here.
Excellent. We do have a quorum. You guys are ready to go.
All right, with that, we will go ahead and move to item 3, call to the public. Do we have anyone signed up to speak?
Yes, we do. Mr. Eduardo Talamantes.
Mr. Talamantes, good afternoon.
About changing the time, the start time? Was it even,
I believe you will take a look and see. I know typically we're not supposed to respond to questions during call to the public, but I will let you know, take a look on there. Item 4B will have an item to that effect.
okay, I was just interested if that was gonna be changed or, is it gonna be changed?
We are going to consider that action, that item, when we get to item 4B. I would not dare to speak for these fine folks up here with me before they get the opportunity to make
Well, the
their,
reason I want
to have a
to
vote.
bring it up is because, as you can see, there's more of you all than there are public people. Because even if you have it on the internet, people are still working. They can't see their internet, most of them anyway. So it's not a very fair way of having an open meeting to the public. And the public probably should be here because 10 years is a long time to live with something you don't like. And I've had to live 10 years with something and I didn't care for too much. And this is one reason I'm here again. And I hope we don't have the same mistake. Well, and it really wasn't too bad at the end. But it was a tough change. So anyway, I'll wait for that. Thank you.
There was no one else signed up to speak, but if anybody is interested, now would be the time. Please go ahead and step up and then give your name for the record. Hearing none, the commission is ready to move on to other business.
Next up on the agenda is item 4A, approval of the minutes from our last meeting on September 16th. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
I move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Quick point of order. If you all could please say your name before you motion or second, and then the chair, as we go through, if you wouldn't mind recognizing members by name. It was a note from our admin as she was preparing the minutes that it was a little difficult sometimes to follow along.
You can't see anyone's mouth
I
either.
know, exactly.
So we have a motion, I believe, from Commissioner Villa, a second from Commissioner Renteria.
Excellent.
All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Item 4B, adoption of the much anticipated 2021 meeting schedule.
Karina Brezgala, for the record. What you see in front of you, these are two options. So we have option A, these are meetings that would be held at 11 a.m. on Tuesdays that don't conflict with council meetings. And then option B are meetings that would start at 4 p.m. There is a sort of staffing conflict. IT can run 4 to 6. We can go a little bit past that. We can't have a meeting much later than that. That is the latest meeting availability for our boards and commissions. And with both of these, it's not listed on here, but the commission would have the option of doing a setup similar to city council, where we list call to the public at a specific time. So perhaps 12 or 12:30 for the morning meetings, 5 or 5:30, whatever you all feel is most appropriate for the evening meetings. So that way members of the public can plan their schedule around when public comment will be held. So that's an option on the table. And these are the two meeting options.
Commissioner from Matt, I see you're lit up. Did you have a comment on this?
No, I'm okay.
I did want to ask, just to make sure I understand, option A is 11 a.m. on Tuesdays, alternating, so you'd essentially flip-flop between a council meeting on one Tuesday, this commission's meeting on the following Tuesday, set to begin at 11 a.m. The other option looks like it keeps much closer to the original schedule, just pushing back the time by an hour to 4 p.m.
Yes, those are on Wednesdays.
On Wednesdays.
So it's not to conflict with the county redistricting commission.
And there's no option, you said that 4 p.m. was the latest we could go, so 5 p.m., which I know was something that we heard from the
Right.
public, heard from others, may be preferable. That's not something that staff feels like they can accommodate.
It would have to be 5 to 6, and I think for the good of the board, I doubt that we're going to have very many meetings after these initial ones that are kept under an hour.
Okay.
Okay, could I ask a question?
Yes, Commissioner Burns.
It is just for the city employees. Do you have, for other public meetings, what is the established standard? Do you have all your meetings with the public during your normal work hours?
Yes, the majority of our board and commission meetings are during the day. The latest meeting is the Historic Landmark Commission, which also is scheduled from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. And then, as you all may or may not be aware, city has changed our operating hours, so we are closed on Fridays. So Fridays are off the table. We can't do a Monday or Tuesday of a council week because city council can run long. And then there are other meetings that happen at 3, at 4 in the afternoon. So this is the best availability we could come up with from city clerks. And I think the option that might make the most sense, because I know there's a concern about public participation, is going ahead starting at 4. A typical agenda would look like the commission is presented some map options. We go through those. There's some discussion. We would break for public comment at 5 or perhaps 5:30. So again, public can plan around that, and then come back and continue with other business as needed.
Could I ask one follow-up question?
Absolutely.
So the normal standard is you conduct all public meetings within normal duty hours or work hours?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so if we wanted by exception, as we move forward, we determined there was a need to have a session by exception outside of hours, is that possible?
It would depend on staff and chambers availability.
And the reason I say by exception, because I'm
Right.
sure there's overtime involved, I'm sure there's other elements that we're just not considering, that belong to the city's budget and so forth. But by exception wouldn't be the norm, and it would be based
Right.
on a need. And I would ask that be considered as one potential way to remedy what Mr. Telemontes is trying to address.
Right. So you're speaking about having regular meetings outside of
No, I
operating hours?
think you have
or-
regular meetings
Okay.
in one of these sessions. I think
Yes.
we vote on this, and I think that's probably reasonable.
Okay,
But I'd like to have the ability, by exception, if we determine it's necessary to meet with a specific community of interest or group during the course of events, that we have the ability to meet with them outside of those hours if it's necessary.
yes. So the board does have the option to call special meetings. Those would, again, still be subject to a certain extent to staff and
Sure.
chambers availability. And then, I believe I mentioned it last meeting, but I'll reiterate again for the benefit of the commission and the public. In 2022, we will be doing, in addition to regular districting commission meetings here at City Hall, we will be having commission meetings outside of City Hall in various districts at different times,
Yeah,
in
and
different locations.
I think that strikes the
Yes.
balance that we're looking for.
Yeah, and then additionally, more public outreach and engagement, so outside of just a commission meeting. So we'll also be doing a variety of public meetings, times, locations.
I'd like to go
weekends
to
as
Commissioner
well.
Renteria, who I think has a quick comment, and then we can go to Commissioner Carrillo, please.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Carrillo.
Thank you, Martin. So, the Wednesday option with what Ms. Carina said, having the public comments scheduled around 5:30 still provides more access to folks who work to make it here, to participate in public comment virtually, and is still within operating hours that staff is available. So that that right now, to me at least, is looking like a good option. And it doesn't conflict with the county meeting. So that's just where the way I'm leaning right now.
To the chair, if I might.
Yes.
Kevin Smith with Planning Inspections. To that point, yeah, there are a number of constraints that we're unfortunately faced with, but it's a fact of the matter. But like Karina mentioned, we always have the ability, you all as a commission, to establish a separate meeting as needed. I would just ask that we do it in advance, just because we have numerous parties that we also have to coordinate with to make sure availability is there. So obviously we'd work with the chair, put an item on the agenda to, so we can talk about it in a commission meeting to get that scheduled. But I would just ask that it be planned out well in advance. Again, the 4 to 6, it sounds like maybe the best option, but obviously, we'll wait on the decision of the commission.
And I just want to thank staff for bringing us the options and allowing us to do our due diligence as far as scheduling goes.
I'd like to concur with Mr. Burns. I agree that we should be able to do some exceptional meetings, and I understand what you're saying, Mr. Smith, that we need enough time to schedule those. Looking back at the minutes for, I think, the districting commission back in 2011, there was like 12 meetings, so I can see where maybe that's going to be required. And you did say, Karina, that we would be able to do those in different parts of the city?
Yes, the plan for the 2022 outreach is a combination of districting commission meetings, both at council chambers and then other venues as availability comes up. And then separately, there will be a public engagement process presenting the maps directly to the public outside of, this is a formal public meeting. That would be a direct to the public in various council districts, again, after hours or on weekends. So that's a separate public engagement process.
And would it be possible to hit all the districts?
That will be likely a requirement, not federal or state, but yes, I would
Okay.
imagine that would be something council would be very interested in.
Now,
having
does
done.
this commission have a budget, its own budget for this? I mean, for the commission itself?
There is, funds for obviously the redistricting process. As planning inspections, we obviously have budget obviously to accommodate for the map revisions and to do the public outreach, but there is not much more than that. So there is not a specified budget as with other boards and commissions. With the cities, there's no specified budget. We just work it in the best we can, but.
Because I was asking if that's available to use to do these other off-hours,
Right.
off-hour
That-
meetings.
There was money slated for the public engagement process of redistricting.
Yeah, but that is something obviously we would have to work out as part of the city with our public information office to get those scheduled, and we work with them for that endeavor. If I might, just for the schedule, it is beneficial to have a consistent schedule so that we can inform the public when these meetings are going to take place. So obviously we're looking at for the remainder of the year for 2021. Near the end of this year, we'll present options for 2022. But consistency is key, we found, so that people know when these meetings are going to be held.
Mr. Chair, I have a follow-up question.
Anything else from Madam Vice Chair, anything else?
No, that's all.
Commissioner Benedillo.
To the point of giving public notice, I noticed that the city of El Paso has a Facebook page, and they have all kinds of cool graphics and information on there. I wonder if something can be developed for this commission to give announcements about these meetings. That might also help with public attendance.
Yeah, and obviously we follow the Open Meetings Act, so we do have to notify 72 hours in advance at a minimum. So that does take place, but we also have numerous avenues we can work with our PIO office for that endeavor. We're also working on creating a districting webpage where we can put announcements, the draft maps, and a whole bunch of other things, which we'll share at a future districting meeting. But that is something also in the works as well to get more information out there. And we're working on different engagement activities to make sure we get wonderful involvement from the community.
And I just mention it because that seems like something the city already has. It seems like something that would be easy to do, that we have a lot of multi-generations on Facebook. And it seems like an just an easy opportunity to give more notice on these meetings so far, while all those other things are getting done.
No, absolutely, and we'll work with our PIO, the Information Office, to look at options for better publicizing the commission meetings, and then, of course, again, a full public engagement process outside of the commission meetings will be happening in 2022. So, just to clarify.
And you did say that that would be presented to us, the commission, what exactly the public outreach is going to be?
But it's more the webpage I was thinking of, to show what features are on it. We're working with our IT staff right now to different ways that we can inform the public of different items, specifically the maps. Because at the end of the day, just remind the commission, at the end of the day, you're going to be making some recommendations to city council on different map options. So that's where we really want the public to be engaged in along the process. But we can work with our PIO office, and we can get with you on that later on.
Any other comments from any other commissioners? If that, I would entertain a motion. If there is a motion on either of these options which were presented by staff.
And then-
So,
Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Commissioner Thaddeus?
So I motion that we accept the Wednesday meeting with the public option to be scheduled at 5 or 5:30.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Renteria. Is there a second, perchance?
Isabel Carrillo, I second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Is there a preference on whether it be at 5 or 5:30? 5:30 does give people more time to come down here in person if they would like, but it also means that it might be towards the end of an agenda, and if you guys have a short day, we would have to do what council does, recess and then come back.
If we can do 5:30, I think that might be, that
Yeah.
might,
I think that
everything that
makes-
you said.
I
Yeah.
think that makes sense, yeah. Okay, we'll do 5:30, and then if we run into an issue, so it'll run exactly like council, we'll have you guys break for discussion, take public comment, and then come back to it if we need it.
Very good.
And if I might just add on, the public still has the option of joining us via Teams, so they can definitely call in and participate that way. They have a number of means that they can view it online as well, so they can see the different map options and then provide public comment via that means if they so desire.
Very good. All right, on to item 5A, discussion and information on 2020 census data.
So Karina Bresgala, for the record, staff is going to ask that items 5A, B, and C be postponed. There is a scheduling conflict with David Mendez from Bickerstaff Heath Delgado Acosta LLP, so he is not able to attend. And then the census data is on hold. We are waiting for city council to act on the redistricting criteria, so they'll be presented that information, and then we'll bring it directly to the commission afterwards.
So I will ask on item 5C, that was postponed last week as well. Do we know
Yes.
why there is now two or less fortnight?
Yes.
Do we know why there now been two meetings we've had where they've been on the agenda,
Yes.
but we're unable to present?
There's a last-minute scheduling conflict with the presenter. He is with outside counsel, and he very unfortunately had a conflict come up last minute and is unable to attend today's meeting.
If someone could please transmit to outside counsel that we have had them on the agenda at the past two meetings. Members of the public, I think, expect to be able to hear from them when they're on the agenda, and when if they miss a third meeting, it looks like they just don't want to come and chat with us, which is not a good look for anybody. So if you could just please let them know that the commission would really, really love to hear from them, as would members of the public.
Yes, understood, and a very unfortunate series of events for today's agenda, but we'll just do a short presentation, then we'll come back and hopefully be able to kick everything off properly in October.
So did I hear as well that staff was asking for a postponement on item 5A as well?
5A, 5B, and 5C, so the census, the boundaries, and the legal training.
All right. I'm certainly very eager to hear on item 5B from the League of Women Voters. I would also ask staff as well to remember that we did place these items on the agenda 2 weeks ago, and so again, members of the public may have come expecting to hear this information. The commission was expecting to hear this information. So while we're very excited to hear from the League of Women Voters, we also want to make sure that we're being respectful of everyone else's time as well.
Yes, understood. It was a last-minute change. We're very, very sorry for the inconvenience, and we wish we could present today, but
Sure thing.
we'll have to postpone, and
All right.
we can go ahead and go on to.
Do you need
5B.
action to postpone?
Do we want action?
Yep, Russell Abelin, Assistant City Attorney. Action would be good. Thank you.
Do we have a motion to postpone those items 5A, B, and C?
Christopher Villa, I move to postpone items A, B, and C to next week.
We have a motion from, and a very good point, to postpone to date certain of October 27th, correct?
Yes.
Very good. All right, so we have a motion from Commissioner Villa. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Burns. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, we are on to item 5D, a presentation on communities of interest from the El Paso League of Women Voters.
Before we do that, and I was looking back at the minutes, I did motion at the last meeting that we have the presentation of the league, from the Women's League of Voters. And I also had requested the current city map with census data at this particular meeting. And I believe it was unanimously passed. We're not prepared to give the census data, and it wasn't on the agenda specifically, but was there a reason why it wasn't on this agenda?
So that would have been the item 5A and B would have covered the census data. Those were one of the items that was just postponed.
Okay. I think my intention was that it coincide with what the League of Women Voters were doing, but I guess that wasn't made clear on my part. But you're saying that that was going to be prepared by the presentation of the city members, city staff?
Yes, so we have that information. That was what was posted on the agenda. That was one of the items that is being postponed.
If there is an issue for the next meeting, you may want to, I would suggest maybe contacting, let's say they are unable to make the next meeting, I would say that the League of Women Voters would be available to do that if there's a conflict in their scheduling.
So
Okay.
are you asking then, you would like to postpone item 5D as well and have the League of Women Voters present at the same time that city staff goes over the census information?
Not necessarily, but
Okay.
if the staff cannot present it for some reason, for some conflict,
Okay.
if you would consider, then I think what Mr. Bartlett was saying is that information is important, and
Right.
don't want it to be continually postponed.
No, yes, that is
Okay.
understood and taken
Okay.
into consideration. Yes.
Mr. Chair, could I ask that we revisit one element of 4 Bravo? The
Yes.
adoption. Okay, but
I'll also let you know, my board just lit up, so everybody be patient. Commissioner Burns.
Okay, so I just want to revisit the 5 and 5:30 time for public comment.
Yes.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, if we can reopen item 4B.
We would need a motion to reconsider item 4B. Do we have a motion?
I motion.
Have a-
Isabel Carrillo motioning.
A motion from the vice chair, a second
I second.
from Commissioner Fomat. All in favor, say aye. Do we need a vote on that? Okay.
Yes.
All in favor of reconsidering item 4B, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye. Commissioner Renteria.
I believe we have a majority of yeses on reconsidering.
Yep.
So
And
that will
thanks for the
reconsider item 4B.
procedural help there. So here's the only concern that I'd have with starting at 5 versus 5:30. I think, when is the shutdown time that the city has for these meetings? When do we close out?
City staff is off at 6 p.m. It
Okay.
can go a bit past that, but we wouldn't regularly want meetings to run until, say, 7
Yeah.
or 7:30. That wouldn't be something we could
The only thing
accommodate.
I would consider between 5 and 5:30 is you're going to limit public comment if there's a back end time. I didn't think of it until we started talking about other things. It's kind of how my mind works. I apologize, but I would be concerned that there may be more than 30 minutes of public comment and discussion. And I think if we start earlier, it's probably a better thing than starting later if there's a back end that's firm.
Yeah, understood.
And I just think we ought to consider that.
Okay.
Thank
We'll
you.
list it as at 5 p.m., and then we can see how it goes with the next couple of meetings and reassess if needed.
Do we need to
Just
revote?
to ask, do we need action
No.
on that? Because we didn't take action
I
on,
don't believe so. The motion was to adopt the Wednesday evening schedule with public comment slated for 5 or 5:30. So that was why I had asked the commission if there was a preference on that, so.
It does. I do want to ask, are all my fellow commissioners comfortable with the intent of what they were trying to do? Which I think we all are of one mind, that we want to make sure that we are maximizing the opportunity for participation. Do we feel like we've done that with the motion?
I'm okay with 5.
I'm looking and I see a lot of comfortable faces.
Commission could also split the difference and do it at 5:15.
And that's what, I think being reasonable is just normal, reasonable behavior. If we go a little beyond, I think 5:15 is not going to hurt anybody, you know, but I just think if you get to the back end and you have a shut off because people go home, you know, it's their
Right.
job's over, then I think we're robbing the public of potential time.
Mr. Chair, if I might, just for the
Yes.
conversation, again, the preference is, from a staff, yeah, we do end at 6, but if there's public comment and there's discussion, we would stay as long as is needed. So although we do technically end our day at 6, there is a little bit of flexibility. The main concern is, again, IT staff. We would have to work with them just to make sure that they're okay as well. But we can make it work if needed.
I do think we're all committed to not walking out the door at 6:01 if there are folks lined up wanting to share their opinions. Let's see, all right. Vice Chair Carrillo, I believe you're lit up. Did you have a comment? Okay. All right, so we reconsidered item 4B. I have not heard a motion on item 4B. Is there a motion forthcoming on item 4B?
Chair, I thought the consensus was we didn't need a new motion because the original one said 5 or 5.
I just wanted to make quite certain. So let me ask from legals for some direction. What do we need to do to move back into the agenda as written?
You can just move back into the agenda. That'd be fine.
All right. Then on to item 5D, I believe.
So I had a quick question on the upcoming item.
All right.
And-
Let me ask, is it, going to look to legal again for a little bit of assistance, is it on item 5D or is it on an item posted on this agenda?
It's related to item 5D, but the previous conversation
Okay.
on 5A before we moved back to 4B. I think I got that right.
All right, well, in that case, let's go ahead, let's open item 5D. Is there anything wrong with taking comment on, from the commission that is tangentially related to item 5D before the presentation comes?
No, if you all want to, go ahead.
Then by all means.
Just related to 5D, since this was sort of tied to the 2020 census data, which we don't have for this meeting, I wonder if when we are going to be presented that data, if the League of Women Voters needs to come back to do a follow-up, if that would be allowed.
Yeah, I think that's something that we discussed in the last meeting was what was the protocol for when groups wanted to come present to us. I don't think we got any direction from staff on kind of a recommendation on how we might proceed. I do think there seemed to be some comfort at the last meeting with doing what we did last time, using the League of Women Voters as a pretty solid prototype. If an organization that is doing work in this area wants to come, do a full presentation, they have the opportunity to come during call to the public, let us know, and then the commission can decide to place them on the upcoming agenda. So I think it would actually be the same, it would be that kind of framework that we would use if there was a necessity of having League of Women Voters come next, or come to provide information once we actually do have the census data.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. We have kept kept them waiting for quite a while. I'm going to ask the League of Women Voters to please go ahead and begin their presentation.
Hi, my name is Judy Ackerman. Excuse me to get untangled here a moment, because I think it'd be better for communication purposes. I am here to speak for Carol Wallace, the president of the League of Women Voters. She is preparing for surgery, or she would be here herself. But since I'm here, I just have to say thank you to all of you who are volunteers for such a critical part of our democracy. I could go on, but I won't. I just thank you immensely for participating, and especially for encouraging the public to participate, and of course for giving me time to speak for Carol Wallace. I'll be saying her words. She says, good afternoon to the redistricting Commission of the City of El Paso. I am not Carol Wallace, but I'm speaking her words. She's the president of the League of Women Voters of El Paso and highly honored to speak before your group. First of all, I would like to congratulate the City of El Paso City Council for being so active in this process of redrawing the city maps following the census results. The League of Women Voters has been very active and acutely aware of the implications of redistricting issues. In 2017, the U.S. and Texas Leagues of Women Voters realized the importance of redistricting based on the census counts. And in the past, politicians gerrymandered districts in order to win and gain political clout. Both parties have participated in gerrymandering, and it has been going on for generations. In order to counter this practice, the League of Women Voters formed a group called Fair Maps to expedite and assure that fair maps were drawn to represent all the voters in communities of interest. The League of Women Voters have given testimony throughout the country in several Texas legislative redistricting hearings to make sure that fair maps are drawn for Texas. The League of Women Voters of El Paso is committed to this process. In March of 2021, several members of our group formed a redistricting committee to study communities of interest throughout the city and county of El Paso. Members include active members of the League of Women Voters. We have interviewed 18 of the city's neighborhood areas throughout our city and county, and have asked questions which directly affect their neighborhoods. While interviewing these neighborhoods in their communities of interest, 2 of our members of our group were drawing maps based on District R and Dave's redistricting software, which is free software and available to you. That's an aside. That help hone in on specific boundaries. These maps will be shared with you at a later date, at your request. We would like to thank the citizens who were interviewed and the League of Women Voters who participated in the redistricting committee. They did a great job and they're still working. In closing, I would like to say we are not drawing maps to please the politicians. We are drawing maps based on what community members say, and those maps are representative of a fair maps process. It is representative of the community, and that meets the needs of constituents in their community of interest. In other words, voters should pick their representatives, politicians should not pick their voters. That all was to introduce Carmen Rodriguez, who is the chair of the League of Women Voters of El Paso Redistricting Committee. She is intimately smart on these issues of communities of interest and has been doing a fantastic job, by the way. So I hope you stack up your questions and give them all to Carmen, not me. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Ms. Ackerman.
Thank you, Judy. Good afternoon. I'm glad to be here to share some information that we have collected in the previous months, as Judy mentioned, since about March of this year. Actually, we started meeting earlier to start preparing for the interviews, and then we started interviewing in March. So what I have is a PowerPoint presentation.
IT, if you can share the presentation, thank you.
Oh, there it is. Okay. I'm going to be talking to you mainly about communities of interest and what that means. Communities of interest is just one aspect of the redistricting process, but it is a very important aspect. And it's something that is very basic that we need to have an understanding about. That's why we chose to concentrate on communities of interest as our first task in this committee. So what is the definition of community of interest? It is a neighborhood, community, or group of people who have common policy concerns and would benefit from being maintained in a single district. Examples include ethnic, racial, and economic groups. Often communities of interest come together to take collective action relative to the government, for example, to protect and maintain their cultural and historic heritage, to protect their environment or protest environmental hazards, petition for improved conditions and services from government, and inform and organize their neighbors to advocate in front of elected officials. When you listen to redistricting debates or reports in the media, you hear a lot about race issues, white versus African American versus Hispanics versus Asian Americans. And those all come into play in broader jurisdictions. In El Paso, as we all are aware, we are a mostly Hispanic community. So those issues may not come into play or may not be as important. However, we do have other aspects of our population that may help to form communities of interest. For example, economic groups. You know, we have some neighborhoods that are in very low income places, and then we have some neighborhoods that have very high property valuations. So those differences can also come into play. And those are the ones that we are probably going to hear more about as you begin the redistricting process. The redistricting process should begin with knowing about the communities of interest within a jurisdiction, and these should be given strong consideration when redrawing political boundaries. Other factors to be considered are equality in the number of voters. Of course, that's the reason why we have to do it every 10 years, because we have to update the census count. Contiguity of the districts is important, and compactness. I was hoping that the legal presentation would be given before this one, because the legal presentation would present all of these different parts of redistricting to you, and they would give you a very good explanation, and I hope that we hear it next time. But anyway, equality in the number of voters is pretty self-explanatory. Since the number can't be precise, they do allow for a percentage of deviation, and it's 10%. Contiguity is just being next to each other as much as possible, and compactness, again, I like to use this as an example. If this were a district, this would not be compact. Some districts look like this, some districts look like this, or like this. This is a compact district. But, of course, there's all manner of shapes and sizes, but the goal is to be compact. How are communities of interest identified? The people who live in an area must define their own community of interest. Only they know what they share in common with their neighbors and what makes their community unique compared to other surrounding neighborhoods. Talking directly to residents by conducting interview sessions is a sound way of identifying them, and that is exactly what we did. During this several-month period that I spoke about, we met by Zoom with 18 different neighborhoods. And I'm just telling you I'm just giving you information about the process that we used so that you can see that we were pretty methodical, but it doesn't mean that we're the only ones that could do this. Anybody could do this. Any group of people who attends the training, they're all online, they're very accessible, could also do a collection of communities of interest. So it's not something that we're specialized in doing. We just decided to do it because that is what the League is all about. So the process that we use is to contact engaged citizens who were either organized and active in their neighborhoods or were very knowledgeable about the geographic area where they live. We started out by asking people from the League itself. We have close to 80 members. Then we also spoke to the central board of the city's neighborhood associations, and we announced the project and invited people to participate. After we identified some neighborhoods, we conducted interviews that lasted from 1 to 2 hours, sometimes with 2 or 3 representatives from that one neighborhood. And then we drew the boundaries of that community of interest as described by the interviewees and took notes on their responses. Oops, I'm trying to go backwards. Okay, so I wanted to give you an idea of the examples of the questions that we asked. And so we would say, what would you say are the boundaries of your community of interest? Sometimes there was a disagreement. When there were 2 or 3 people, they might have a different idea about, well, it's this street, no, it's that street. Usually they would come up with a consensus about, yes, you're right, this is the boundary. The second question told us a lot. If your community of interest was to gather for a meeting, what would it be about? This would tell us what was of concern in their neighborhood. And they would come up with all kinds of topics that they thought their neighborhood would want to talk about, from the streets to safety, to flooding, all sorts of issues. What is the range of the home values? The meaningful or popular sites? Where do residents prefer to shop? What kinds of work or professions are residents involved in? And another very interesting one was, what makes your community of interest unique? Of the surrounding neighborhoods, which are similar, which are different? This gives us an idea of what their sense of their community was. And sometimes they were very clear about this, from this street to north, they are very different. They are, we have nothing in common with them, and we hardly ever go over there. To other times when they would say, oh yes, we go over there all the time. We like to go to the parks, whatever. So all these observations were noted, and we collected them. So this is just a little summary of what the whole process entailed. We conducted at least one interview in each city district, but some we had more. We prioritized some areas because we thought that it would be more likely that there would be a boundary change that would impact that neighborhood. If somebody was way out where there would be no boundaries drawn close to them, then we would not give that priority. There's so much that can be done, so we had to limit it in some way, and so that's how we chose it, from just our judgment as to what areas would be likely to have an impact in the redrawing of the boundaries. So here is a little summary of some of the observations that we noted, and I guess this is the substantive part. I've been talking about the process that we used, but this is more substantive, and these are also examples of what we observed. I-10 is a man-made boundary for communities of interest. I think everyone knows that. That's very clear. There was clear acknowledgement that I-10 delineates the boundaries, and no community of interest identified itself as spanning I-10. Communities of south of I-10 are more aligned with each other than with those north of I-10 and vice versa. Affinity between communities of interest north of I-10 versus south of I-10 increases as we move from downtown towards the east. In other words, there was more of a difference in the center of the city than there was in the eastern part of the city. Communities south of I-10 are concerned about less favorable treatment from governments, and specifically city government, I should add. This was also pretty consistent among the communities south of I-10. They have the perception, probably the reality, that their area is not receiving as favorable treatment as others. With respect to other observations, of course, the Franklin Mountains is a natural boundary for communities of interest. Northeast communities of interest felt they had little in common with the west side. General consensus was that if the northeast area had to be split into northern versus southern portions, the division would be along Hondo Pass. The black vote, we noted, in Northeast is currently split between County Precinct 4 and County Precinct 2. I don't think that is true in the city, but we did notice that there is that split within the county precincts. Next, Northeast area in current Precinct 4 is a minority to overall precinct population. And Precinct 4, as you will recall, sits over the mountain, on both sides of the mountain. We thought that this was surely going to need to be repaired or redrawn, but you will see that it's not as difficult it's not as easy as it might seem. So that's going to be an interesting challenge, and our maps will reflect those challenges. The community of interest wrapping around the foot of the mountain saw more commonality with each other than communities of interest further north. So there was something about living at the foot of the mountains that was common and consistent among those that were close to the mountain. Just because they were in the northeast didn't necessarily mean that they had a lot in common with the northern part of the northeast, or the northeast part of the northeast, if that makes sense. So these are the list of neighborhoods that we interviewed from representatives from. And the city district that they belong in at the current time. So I tell you all of this because I had one more slide, because what we are planning to do with this information is we have incorporated into our maps, and we have already presented 3 maps to the County Redistricting Commission, and they will be, oh, thank you. And so they will be considering those maps. We drew one map for the JP precinct, and they have a big problem with the JP precincts because there's all kinds of variables there, and we are not as involved with that. But we have started drafting new boundaries for city representative districts, and we are planning to submit them to you all. And we have incorporated what we learned from the communities of interest into those maps, and we hope that they are given due consideration. So I've come to the end. That is the work that we've done in the committee, and we're going to continue to work until we can be with you and work with you on the maps that are going to be drawn by this body. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Ms. Rodriguez, thank you so much for the thoroughness of that presentation. It was incredibly fascinating and very illuminating. I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to have a lot of questions from members of the commission. So what I'm going to do, I see Commissioner Villa is lit up first, and I'll go to him first. I'll recognize him first.
Yes, I guess so. Your major concern with this group is that when the new boundaries are drawn for the city districts, that we do not split up the COIs. Is that correct?
Yes, and that is not just our concern. That's the concern of most people that want fair maps and that want equality in the redrawing of the districts.
And then what are your concerns regarding like how these COIs cluster together? I mean, you have identified 18, but I mean, do you have recommendations on how those 18s cluster into, say, 8?
Well, they're spread out right now. They're spread out throughout the city. I'm not sure I understand what you mean with clustering.
I guess what I mean is like you have 18 COIs, right? I mean, do you have any? I guess you're going to present the maps to us, but I mean, how did you group those 18s into larger groups?
Okay, first of all, we just happened to do 18. There are probably 118, maybe 1,018, I don't know. There are many, many communities of interest. We just happened to stop at 18, and actually, we didn't say, okay, we've stopped now. We said, these are all we're doing for now. If we need to do more, we'll do more. And we will consider that. So this is what we have so far. You know, if we were doing this full time and had more resources, we could probably just keep on doing it forever.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Burns.
Hi. Hey, first,
Hello.
thanks for your service to the community. That's some really good work. Is it possible to get a copy of your slides?
Yes, yes, I'm going to leave a copy, and I did make copies of the observations. Ms. Carrillo had asked me if I could bring copies of the observations that we noted. I think
Yeah.
those were the most interesting ones, so we can go ahead and.
So with regard to your observation, what did you see what did you consider after assessing your work would be the greatest challenge to this commission in terms of how we address communities of interest?
Well, the greatest challenge is to maintain. You're not going to be able to maintain all of the communities of interest.
No, I fully understand that, and I'm not asking this question on the macro, so
Right.
please don't answer it on the macro. What I'm looking micro answer. What area did you look at and go, that's going to be a problem?
I think if you look at the current map of the city representative districts, you will see that it is very oddly shaped and that it needs to be more compact, and that we need to ensure that there is more equitable representation of communities south of the freeway.
Okay, thank you.
Going to go next to Commissioner Renteria, please.
Thank you. I was wondering if you could say a little bit more about how you prioritized the community of interest that you all did focus on. I think that might also kind of a follow-up to Mr. Villa's question.
Well, we had to do outreach in order to get people to participate. So we had to start with you know that redistricting is coming up? Do you know what it's about? Do you know how important it is? Do you know that citizens need to participate? In the past, they have not participated, and that's why we have so much gerrymandering. It's your civic duty to participate, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's how we would start with, even with the League of Women Voters. We did, not everybody raised their hand to participate, and I'm talking about the membership. We didn't go to people that are very politically involved, like the Democratic or the Republican parties, because we didn't want to have partisan arguments. So we went to the neighborhood association, and in fact, Judy went and talked to them, made a presentation, asked them if they wanted to participate. We received quite a number of people that volunteered from there. And then when we were maybe about midway in the process, we said, okay, we need to start prioritizing, because there is no need for us to, for example, go and interview the Tigua Indian reservation residents, because we're not going to come anywhere near making a boundary there, although that would be very interesting. And by the way, these interviews were very interesting. If you want to know about El Paso, it's a great way to find out, because people are telling you, and they just want to share their information, and it was very interesting. So basically that's how we did it. And then we said, okay, well, looking at our map currently, there are problems with it that we see, and so maybe we should try to select some neighborhoods in this general area.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez.
You're welcome.
I'd like to recognize the vice chair. Oh,
I've got nothing to add.
So,
Commissioner Fimet?
Hi, yeah, I have a question now that you mentioned about the Tigua, the reservation. And you were mentioning also about I-10 being the divider. When you conducted the interviews, and I know most of it you say South, and I feel they got equal representation or treatment, did that have any effect because of the Tiguas and the I-10 right there, I guess, dividing those things? Because I know that you can't redistrict or reposition the reservation. So my question is, did you feel a certain, I guess, mentality or concern from the people that live around those neighborhoods?
I think that generally speaking, the Mission Valley area is concerned about receiving the same kind of services that is afforded to other areas. I think they have felt neglected, and I think that came through in a couple of interviews.
Okay.
Commissioner Villa?
yeah, so you had mentioned that there's several districts that had problems. Can you cite which districts that you believe that have those problems, and what are those problems?
I'm not really prepared to go into those specifics, because I didn't bring all of our data, and that was not my intention. I wanted to give you an idea about the process that we used and give you an understanding of how we collected information that we are going to incorporate into the maps that we present. And at that time, we might be able to explain, the why the boundary here and not somewhere else. So there will be time to explore those specifics better.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you again for the depth of the presentation. I did want to ask a couple of questions. I don't think any of us are shocked to hear that I-10 felt like a barrier. I don't think any one of us are shocked to hear the Franklin Mountains felt like a barrier. Could we put just maybe a little bit more granularity to that? You mentioned, I think very importantly, that the further you moved out from downtown, maybe the less those differences north and south felt. What about moving west, I guess north on I-10 out of downtown? Was there still that kind of, it would really be an east-west split on either side of Interstate 10 on the west side? But did you hear anything from folks on that side of the mountain? Did they feel like the freeway was a boundary in the way that others might have felt that?
No, I think in the west side, the freeway is not seen as much of a boundary as is North Mesa Street.
Hmm.
And in fact, that's the way, that's the boundary now. And I, I frankly don't understand why. You know, but it is a heavily trafficked street, so, you know, maybe there isn't that much crossover.
Who knows? Another question: Did you all in your research find any of that same kind of impact on US 54 or maybe Trans Mountain Road in the northeast?
No, not really. That didn't come up. I don't think there's too many residences around the Trans Mountain.
Fantastic.
You know.
Any other questions from commissioners? Well, again, I just want to thank the League of Women Voters for your patience with us and for providing such deep dive information. I know that there is a lot of what you have said that will inform a lot of our work moving forward.
Thank you. I just want to say that when you receive your legal training on all the different aspects, I think this will make more sense because you'll see where it fits in.
Fantastic. We thank you again very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right. It looks like we have completed our business. I do want to ask if there is a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Before we do that, I'd like to ask something else.
By all means.
Some things for the agenda, maybe to be added to the agenda. I know in my own mind, one of my big concerns is the timeline that we're working under. Could that be addressed or provided to us sooner than later? Also, the public outreach, we talked a little bit about that earlier. If we could have maybe a presentation again sooner, maybe this meeting, if not, maybe the next meeting, this coming meeting or the one after that, to kind of clarify what you're all doing. And we may have some more ideas or some more requests, but I think those two items, if we can get them on the agenda for next, preferably for next meeting.
Okay, if I might just, we can definitely get the schedule on because I think it's important we talk about it because this is going to be I wouldn't say a lengthy process because we do have timelines that we do have to adhere to, but we do have time to make do the work that we need to. So we can definitely put the timeline on the next agenda.
Okay.
If you wouldn't mind, let me work with our PIO office to see when they may be able to come in and present an item too. We can do our best to get it on the next one, but it may have to be the meeting afterwards. As we noted, there are a number of items, and we're grateful for your patience that got postponed from this meeting. We do want to get those on the next meeting and make sure those are addressed quickly, because it'll help set the stage for other the future meetings moving forward.
Okay.
So
and I may have something else, but I'm going to hold off because wait to see what the legal training regarding the voting precincts.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Thintia?
Do we need to
Thank
make a
you,
motion for the?
I was just wondering, if I remember correctly, at our last meeting, I think we had asked for an item to be placed, like something similar to an open forum or other things that the commission wishes to discuss, and that's not on the agenda this time. Will it be on the agenda next time?
Yes. Obviously, with the some of the discussion today, the approval of the schedule, we're going to be reformatting the agenda, and that will be something that we put on the make sure is on the agenda next time and moving forward.
So that's a very good question. I do want to just make sure that I understand. Thank you for reminding me. So we will have a call to the public at the beginning of the meeting.
No, the call to the public, from my understanding, will be at 5 or 5:30.
Okay, correct.
And then one of the last items on the agenda will be items for future meetings that we'll put on there so that the commission can make a vote whether to hear, X, Y, or Z.
Mm-hmm. And I have one more question.
Absolutely.
I had requested the PowerPoint from the last training that you gave us, Assistant District Attorney, and so we have not received that. I mean, City Attorney, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Could we get that before the next meeting?
Yes, I'll send that out to you all.
And then as well as we're on presentations, we'd be happy to send out the presentation from the League of Women Voters to the commission as well for your information.
And to that, Commissioner Burns, I see, one quick question I think goes directly to this item. Remind me, the posting requirement for these meetings is 72 hours in advance, correct? Is all backup required to be in and posted with the agenda, or no?
So it is my understanding that no, as once we post, we put the public on notice that there'll be items talking about a specific topic. Although we do, moving forward, would like to provide you all the information in advance.
Because I do think I will step out on a limb here and speak on behalf of some others and assume it's probably would be beneficial if we could have some of this information ahead of time, a board packet essentially, so we can see the presentation, be aware of what's coming, be able to kind of maybe formulate some more thoughtful questions in advance. Not to say that we're not all thoughtful on the fly, but you know, with a little bit more time, who knows what we can do.
Yeah.
So,
But we'll do our best to get that moving forward. I wouldn't say that they're going to be for every item, but we'll do our best
Sure.
to get you all a packet, if you will, so that you all can do research prior to the meetings.
fantastic. Commissioner Burns.
I have nothing else for the group.
With that, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing that, the motion carries and we are adjourned.